Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of Fellowship in Essential Oils. Liz, we made it to a second episode.
We did, and weren't the comments beautiful? Thanks so much, everybody, for the lovely reception.
Yeah, whether you've been listening to us on one of the podcast outlets or you've been watching us on YouTube, we really, really appreciate it. You know, Liz and I sit here and have a bit of a natter for about 30 minutes, and we're glad that someone else is benefiting from our nattering as well, aren't we?
It's not going into a black hole. That's nice.
No, exactly. But today we're going to go down a deep, deep hole kind of thing. We're going to go in and explore an essential oil that is kind of a new kid on the block, but is definitely making an impression in the aromatherapy world, and that's Copaiba. So
yeah, I mean, we say we new kid on our block, but in Ecuador and Peru, it's their traditional medicine. And in the U, I found lots and lots of sort of Victorian recipes with it in, lots of medicines with it in. So new to essential oils, but not to plant medicine.
So this, if you haven't heard of Copaiba, it is a resin essential oil. Now, normally when we think of resin essential oils, we think of, frankincense and myrrh. This is extracted a little bit different. And if you know how they extract maple syrup out of a maple tree, they kind of drill a little hole in it and it kind of pours out. And when you steam distill that, that's where you get the essential oil. So it's not so much the picking it off the edge like you'd see with the frankincense and myrrh. There's a different, the family of trees, in parts of South America where we get Copaiba from. And to describe the aroma, I would say, Liz, that, it's probably not going to win the award for the best. It's not a dreadful smelling one. It's quite a faint smelling, kind of a slight woody smell. Would you agree?
Yeah, it kind of is a bit resinous, woody, isn't it? Yeah, it's not something the fragrance houses are going to go mad for, is it? Which is great, because that'll mean that they're not going to hike our prices up too.
Very true, very true. But what is amazing about it is how many people have found the benefits of Copaiba and are singing its praises and that kind of thing. So do you want to start off by talking a little bit about the physical benefits of it, Liz, and I'll jump in after you?
Oh, well, yeah. So we give me the hard bit. But we talk about the indigenous medicine. They use it predominantly for respiratory problems, particularly coughs and colds, but asthma, and also COPD, but also gynecological problems, period pains, that kind of thing. But when we look at it from a molecular point of view, which the scientists are doing a lot because it has a very important molecule in it, then we can draw that out to understand a lot more about it. So one of the reasons why Copaiba is, in fact, so that's how they say it in the South America, Copaiba. So one of the reasons why it's so popular is because it's very high in a constituent called beta caryophyllene. And you've been doing this job too long when you say, well, my favorite molecule is beta caryophyllene. I get really excited about beta caryophyllene. So like the plants make beta caryophyllene as a way of telling creatures at their roots to get lost. You've injured me too much. And then to signal to insects, other weevils and things in the soil to say, come and get rid of them and help me heal. And this really translates really well into the human medicine. So beta caryophyllene is so important right now because we know that it interacts with something called the endocannabinoid system, which is our primary endocrine system. So our endocrines are obviously what we secrete for stress, for hormones, all of those things. But the reason why we say that the endocannabinoid system is the primary endocrine system is because it's like the volume switch. And for it to work really well, we need to be eating lots of omega-3, which, to be honest, not many of us do. And so then it can become dysfunctional. And the endocannabinoid system has got 2 different molecules, 2 different receptors. It has several actually, but these are the 2 main ones. CB1 is in the brain and the spinal cord, and that molecule looks after things like memory, makes you forget things. For example, it's involved in PTSD, appetite, nausea, itching, pain, lots of different things. But we're not interested in that one. We're interested in the CB2 receptor, which is in not the brain, not the spinal cord, although I have to say there are small amounts in the brain, but it's in the periphery. It's on the blood and the lymphatic tissues. And what this does is it modulates 3 different things: pain, inflammation, and immunity, right? So the reason why it's so interesting from a nervous system point of view is because it signals backwards. We call it retrograde signaling, and it's what tells the body, I need some more of that, or you haven't sent me enough of that, or this is going worse. So it's a bit like saying to somebody, do you want a bit more cake? And somebody goes, yes, please. This is what's happening. And so if the endocannabinoid system's not working, nobody ever asks you if you want any more cake, and how bad would that be? So now you may think that this is a Zumba cane that I never use, but actually it's not. It's a scientific model of a nerve, right? So if you put a nerve underneath the microscope, you'd be able to see it has what's called a boot on, which is here. And hear them? Can you hear the neurotransmitters? So that's serotonin, dopamine, that kind of thing, right? So normal signaling goes forward, presynaptic nerve, postsynaptic nerve. But the endocannabinoid system says, sending it back, you didn't send enough. You didn't send enough. So if we can interact with the CB2 receptor, we can send messages backwards to say, turn down that pain. My immunity is not strong enough. I need to push it up. And we need to switch down our inflammation. So consequently, oils that are rich in beta-caryophyllene are good for inflammation, immunity, and pain. That's where I was in the list then. And the reason why we've come full circle now, the reason why Copaiba is so important and everybody wants to use it is because it contains huge amounts of beta-caryophyllene. You do need to look at which brand you're looking at, because it can be anywhere from about 20% up to about 70%, depending, and you'd check your GCMS report to do that. And to be clear, it's not the only oil that has it in. Black pepper has beta-caryophyllene, for example. So we can use it in different ways, but Copaiba, particularly Copaiba langistorfi, rather than Copaiba officinalis, has very high levels of what's called cannabimimetic, in that it mimics cannabinoids to be able to interact with the CB2 receptor. Over to you.
You did it. Well done. Well, one of the things that I love about, and as I've learned more, I am also getting like you, where I try not to talk too much chemistry to sound overwhelming. But what I've found really interesting is how plant chemistry almost replicates itself throughout. So another well-known one is linalool. Now, linalool is well known to be in things like lavender. But some people, lots of people love lavender. Other people, they hate it. But if you want to get that calming of the central nervous system, which we get from linalool, there's bergamot, which smells totally different. There's petitgrain. Basil has it. Coriander can have it in. All these different ones. So, okay, we get our beta-caryophyllene from, obviously, our Copaiba, and that's why we're talking about Copaiba. But something that Copaiba is very often compared to is CBD oil, because it also works with the endocannabinoid system as well. However, what I find there are, and I know that you've done a great, amazing book on this as well, but with CBD, there it is. Oh, look at that, just having to be on the bookshelf behind you. You know, what I've found with CBD oil is there's 3 challenges. One, first of all, it can be expensive. It can be quite expensive. 2, we've obviously got legalities in different places around the world and actually getting it to there. And 3, you know, it does also contain THC, which does have some concerns. Now, you can get some CBD oils where that's taken out of, but there's actually a research done, and about 2/3 of CBD oils are mislabeled that are available on the market. So you're actually not too sure what you're getting. So that's the great thing, is you get a very similar effect. And obviously there's going to be similar effects and slightly different. But Copaiba, it's cheaper. It's readily available around the world. And it doesn't contain that THC, which is going to be a worry. Plus, what you find is that it's been found to seem to get into the signal to the endocannabinoid system quicker, like the pathway it takes is quicker. And there has been some research that's been finding that the longer you use Copaiba, the more the endocannabinoid system develops more receptors to it and will actually be more, so it actually gets better as time goes on, which when we think about pharmaceuticals, sometimes, you know, they can go backwards as time goes on as well. Not saying that CBD oil is. So for anyone who, you know, people may not have heard of Copaiba, but they've heard of CBD oil, I think, you know, I'm always like, if you're looking at CBD oil, have a look at Copaiba for many different reasons as well.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I have another model.
Look at you.
This time it's a mauled up football with 2 receptors. So this is a starry receptor and this is a silver receptor. So this is a CB2 receptor, CB2 cell. And then we have what's called an orthosteric receptor and an allosteric receptor. So CBD works on the allosteric receptor. It's like the back door. So I always think of it. Remember Prince's song, Raspberry, she came in the outdoor. That's the outdoor, right? So THC, you're quite right, interacts with the usually the CB1 receptor, actually, not CB2. But if we talk about CB1 here, it interacts orthosterically, THC does, but CBD comes in the back door and switches it down. So even if we've got huge amounts of CBD, then that will switch down the psychoactive effects of THC. So that's not so much of a concern as people might think. One thing that I would flag up that perhaps isn't seen when you're looking at essential oil medicine, but when you're looking at like molecular medicine, is CB2 is being the CB2 receptor is being researched in depth, because not only those areas that I talked about, the immunity, the pain, the inflammation, but it seems very likely that it will be able to be used to help people who've got multiple sclerosis and ALS. And so they're researching what we call allosteric modulators, such as caryophyllene, to be able to use those as medicines. But one of the things that is slowing that down is long-term stimulation of the CB2 receptor leads to cancer and loss of bone density. So we should be really careful, not to say, right, we're going to be using any particular essential oil long term. We should be switching it up and changing it around, because inadvertently, even if you weren't even trying to modulate the CB2 receptor, essentials have got so many other chemicals that are doing so many things. Essentials don't have side effects and have many main effects. So what we don't want to do is put too much pressure onto the CB2 receptor, because of course when that starts working, then it turns something else off, and we know that that causes tumor formation and loss of bone density.
I think just what you said there, and this is something I always like to get on my little pony and my little bandwagon and talk about, is, you know, some people get their favorite essential oils and they become really loyal and they use them over and over again. Now, we know that people don't go, you've got to eat your tomatoes. We've got to eat our vegetables. And why do we eat our vegetables? Because we get something different from a tomato, from a carrot, from cabbage, and so on. So, there are lots of great oils for sleep. There are lots of great ones for skincare. Mix them up a little bit so that you're getting, all the goodness, and not, like you said, there can be, too much of a good thing can be a bad thing.
I definitely think so. And I'm one of the world's worst. I mean, I haven't got my oils behind me today, but people who watch my videos will know that there are actually 450 oils there, of which I probably use about 20 all of the time, the same ones, the healing clicks, because they're the ones that I know. But as you quite rightly say, you need to not rely on one too long. You need to be kind of leveling it out over a playing field of several different oils.
So sticking with the physical attributes of Copaiba, where would you personally, and the clients that you work with, what are you using it for specifically normally? When do you reach for Copaiba?
Yeah, so it's one of my go-to ones if somebody's got an infection. So people who follow my page will know that I've been really quite ill with a horrible cough, and so I was really trying to boost. You're not supposed to say boost because the FDA would say we haven't got a license to say boost, but I'm going to say boost immunity, reduce inflammation, and actually being completely sort of controversial here, I always use it in tandem with CBD because I think that the two really work really well together. But it's not so much inflammation because I have other oils that I'm addicted to for inflammation, but certainly immunity and pain. Yeah.
I think for pain, it's a
you?
great. For pain, definitely, it's a great one. I love a bit of layering with that, with a bit of frankincense, wintergreen, and lemongrass. Leaving a couple of minutes in between, and normally Copaiba, the last one. I have heard some rumors, and I'm not going to say that I'm not going to put my word behind it, but that some people, I've heard it in around the traps, that Copaiba helps other oils absorb through the skin topically. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. Yeah, I've heard it around the way.
I've seen this myth as well. And I've also seen people saying things that people lie about with Copaiba. How can that be true? And I would say that I think that that's a mishmash of two things that are true that are not true. But I can't say for completely if I've got it. But there are certain essential oils that are being researched to help other medicines to go into the system faster. So, for example, lavender helps. It's called transdermal application. I wouldn't be surprised to find that beta-caryophyllene helps transdermal application, simply because it brings down inflammation, and so therefore there's not so much of a defense mechanism. But also, I think maybe that's kind of, excuse my language, a bit of bastardized version of synergy. So what we say is when we've got one or two or three oils together, what they tend to do is create a stronger effect through synergy.
Got you. Yep.
But I don't know. I have heard that, but I wouldn't say it's not what I see. But then I'm not looking for it either.
Yeah. So I think pain's going to be the great one, but I find that it has such a beautiful calming energy to it. For anyone who's just feeling, when we look at the leading cause of death of humans in this world, it used to be contagious diseases, but we kind of got that all under wraps of a little while ago. It's inflammation. Inflammation causes cancers, it causes diabetes, it causes asthmas. Even parts of the brain becoming found in scans of people with depression have inflammation. And we have, you spoke about omega-3 oils that we need. There are two main omegas that we need in our diet, omega-3 and omega-6. And I always think of them as two kids on a seesaw. Omega-3 turns down inflammation and omega-6 turns it on. People are like, oh, well, omega-6 is bad. But we do need some inflammation in our body because, a basic example, if I cut myself or if I hurt myself, I need a bit of inflammation as everything rushes there, that type of thing. But we need that seesaw to be even. The average Western diet is 16-1, where we're eating 16 lots of omega-6 to only that little bit of omega-3. So that's why we have so much inflammation in our body and all the different health challenges as well. So like you said, Copaiba is great for inflammation and pain. Is there and immunity? It's hard to find someone in the world who isn't dealing with either pain, too much inflammation somewhere, or
I agree, and when we're talking about molecules as we are, you can't avoid it when you're talking about a Copaiba. We also kind of go into the realm of psychoneuroendocrinology, how it's like the bridge between the mind and the body. And for example, there's lots of proof that says that people who are in hostile marriages, their wounds heal slower. So this kind of, I always talk about, like, from an Ayurvedic point of view, the pitta dimension of heat in inflammation. You know, it's not just sore skin, it's angry right the way through. And you know, how the cystitis gets hot and inflamed. Inflammation can be on lots of different levels, and whilst we don't see it written down that Copaiba is for fury, definitely I would say that it was. But indigenous medicine also says, you know, it's a heart medicine. You know, soothing from a love point of view, soothing to anger.
Yeah. And one thing I should say, you know, here in, you know, we all have our governing bodies in every country. Here in Australia, we've got our TGA, which says what you can and can't say. We actually have it listed as a soft gel medicine here, for benefits for the digestive system and the respiratory system. One thing I have noticed, not with everyone, but with some people, because of its nice calming effect, if they take it during the day, they do find themselves to be a little bit kind of not as sprightly, kind of a little bit drowsy. So some people prefer to, you know, if they are using Copaiba, prefer to use it in the evening as well. Some people take it in the morning and it helps them to feel a bit more serene throughout the day. But it's just, you know, for each person, if you're going to be using Copaiba, you may want to be mindful of, may not be the best to try it for the first time on a day where you need to shine brightly, kind of thing.
Yeah, I would say that's true. I mean, we talk about beta caryophyllene, but obviously that, well, it's a perfect situation. You're looking at about sort of 60% of the oil, so there's 40% other different constituents in there. For example, alpha humulene, which is an isomer, which means it's like the same chemicals just arranged in a different way. And alpha humulene is brilliant for sleep. And so, yeah, that'll be where I'm getting a bit dozy. It's not like it's dangerous to drive or anything like that, but it is a bit like Sunday afternoon after you've had your lunch. You know, you just like, had enough now. Yeah.
So I think it's great for that. Me personally, I love it on the soles of my feet when I go to bed at night for a bit of a calm down as well. And also a drop with moisturizer it can be really, really great as well. So and on the face. I find it really nice for the face.
Yeah, and again, from a skincare point of view, yes, lovely. But if you've got like redness on your skin, so rosacea, or if you're prone to acne, which is, you know, angry acne, or eczema, psoriasis, dermatitis, all of those have an inflammatory nature, but also an immunity dimension to them. And so, yeah, very helpful idea.
So let's look at, you touched a little bit on the emotional or the deeper levels of Copaiba. For you, on that more holistic level, where does Copaiba sit?
So, yeah, I would say about anger, but I would talk about how people get incensed. So I'm going to deliberately shift this off the question like a politician here, and say we talk about medical astrology, and medical astrology puts anything to do with the electrical mechanisms of the body under Uranus, or as I like to say, Uranus. And so, Uranus has an unexpected dimension to it, but also an explosive dimension to it. But Uranus is about the individual and the collective. And so I always think about it like, I joined a choir once, and I was the youngest there by about 40 years. And I was there for a very short amount of time, but people immediately thought, oh, she knows about computers, she'd be great for helping us with the marketing. And immediately I was sucked into the very core of the choir. I was in the decision makers. And so, like, I became part of the collective. But it became very clear that there were a lot of people who didn't want to move on from the way that they'd done. And so there was like a part of me that was like, I can do this different. I could do this better, which is, you know, this is how the world develops, isn't it? And this is how the Uranian ideal of making evolution, really. And so this idea of, I've just had enough of the way you're doing it. I've had enough of this marriage. I've had enough of this job. I could do this better. I could do it better on my own. Copaiba goes, go on then, go on, have a go. And it's very good for saying, don't listen, don't procrastinate, don't get sucked into somebody else's. Do it. From that focusing point of view, that's how I use Copaiba.
Yeah, interesting. So obviously, then we normally talk near the end about which planet we would associate it with. So you're Copaiba and Uranus, yeah?
Uranus, come on.
Oh, I might blush if I say it that way.
I'll start talking about penis trees in a minute. Penis sylvestris, will be well away.
Excellent, exactly. We'll have to be not safe for children on our podcast. No, awesome. So, we said last week, we disagreed last week when we were talking about Melissa and the astrology. So when I work with Copaiba, I love to look at where in the tree or where in the plant the oil comes from. That's going to give you a really indication on what kind of medicine it brings in. So when we look at resin oils, where are they in the tree? They're deep within. So frankincense, we know, probably the most famous resin oil. He's known as the king of the oils. And frankincense, when we talk about Frankie, I'll go on my, wax lyrical about the divine masculine, and myrrh being almost his feminine counterpart helps us connect to our masculine and our feminine sides and heal them. When I started working with Copaiba, and I remember I'd use it each evening, and the phrase that just kept on echoing in my mind was, who am I? Who am I? Now, if you think, whenever someone says, who are you? What do? We normally give them our name. We might say what our occupation is. We might say, oh, I'm a teacher, or I'm a lawyer or something. You might say, I'm a wife, I'm a mother. You might say, I'm a British citizen or an Australian citizen. But if you think about all those things that I've listed, we're not them. Because you can move country. You can lose your relationships. You can change your job. So these are hats that we wear. So what I find is Copaiba doesn't ask you, who are you? But actually work out who you are not. And in stripping away that, because when we are a mother or a partner or a teacher, there's also these standards of, I need to be that. I need to be a good mother. I need to be a good citizen, and these types of things. And this, when I was studying at the New York School of Philosophy, they talked about the unchanging observer, the part of us that never changes. And I find Copaiba starts to take you back to that, because in life we are playing so many different roles and so much pressure to fulfill those roles that we lose track of who we are, just trying to be good and show that off to the world. So it's a really nice one of not even you may never get to the answer of who you are, but Copaiba just wants you to make sure you strip away who you're not. So it really helps you to get into that and can really bring in a sense of peace of like, oh, well, I don't have to be that. That's just a role or a title I've given to myself. And then I've taken on the expectations of society on how I need to live them as well. So it really does help to soothe that. And we were talking about anger before, probably gets a little bit of anger and frustration out. So a very, very peaceful oil. And for that reason, I actually like to work with Copaiba with Pluto, because Pluto gets back to who we are at that core, getting in with our core essence and stripping away all the bullshit of, the ego and the motivations that are non-authentic or not for the greatest in that way. I find Copaiba gets really into the dark. He wants to go into the darkness, into the soul where there is no glitter and no glamour and no light in that type of way. So I love Copaiba with that platonic type of energy.
Wow, I love that. So, yeah, I think almost there's an overlap between the two, isn't there? Because when we have this idea of the individual and the collective, it's weird how it's almost like a paradox, isn't it? Am I me, or am I part of this? Am I part of this, or am I me? The two come together, and this Uranian idea of breaking out is all about the individual genius, isn't it? It's about that quintessential part of you. And as you quite rightly say, that's part of the Plutonian journey. And it's interesting how we've both picked outer planets, not inner planets.
Yeah.
So like inner planets, if people don't know, are like Mars, Mercury, Venus. They're to do with the inside of you, the quick moving stuff, really. But the outer planets are much slower. They're more to do with generational and the outer world. And so how we are relating to our outer world is interesting, especially when it is from the bark of the tree. But also just sort of building on what you said, which I absolutely loved about where you get it, the part of the tree. What people may not know is that the Copaiba tree acts slightly differently to a frankincense tree. We don't have to like slash it to make it bleed. It becomes almost pregnant with so much oil. And so by tapping it, we're actually relieving that. And so you can see how that becomes like a gynecological medicine as well. And Pluto rules that kind of sexuality, doesn't it? Genital urinary problems, sexual diseases, that kind of thing. So yeah, I love that. I think that's a really good way of looking at it.
Yeah, and one of the things that just came in that I just want to throw in there that I feel some people might need to hear as well is how we decide whether we're doing good or bad in the world is based on the feedback of everyone. So, you know, we were talking about the kind comments that we got after the first episode. And so we're like, okay, well, we're doing okay. But then if everyone's saying we're doing bad, we're like, oh, we're not doing good. And it's interesting how just the feedback of the people around us, remember that everyone has their own prejudices. You know, when we look at as children, our parents are, you know, we realize when we get older, our parents aren't perfect. So we can't always, Copaiba allows you to come in and actually check in and listen to, am I doing good? Who am I? And am I shining who I'm meant to be? Rather than, am I pleasing the rest of the world around me? Because we get partners that aren't happy with us. We get people that aren't happy with us. So it comes back to our core and can be a really strengthening to take away that fieriness around us, I find.
Well, I suppose that comes back to what I said about the indigenous medicine of coming from the heart, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How do I feel about that? But that's really interesting and useful to me, what you've just said there, Adam, because I had the loveliest occasion on Friday, I think, and a lady messaged me and she said, thanks for doing a review of my book. Her name's Shelley Entine, by the way. The book's called The Last Priestess, a little plug for her. And she says, I've done a draw of the people who've done reviews. I want to do you a reading. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, I didn't realize how good a reading off Shelley is. So she did me this amazing astrology. And she said, one of the things I can see about you is that if you think you're knocked or you think things are going wrong, you know, the Cancerian goes back into a shell and you become very narky and defeated. And that was a very astute thing to see for somebody who didn't know me. All my friends and family were just like, oh shit, you're a nail on the head. But you quite rightly say that is how I use Copaiba, to say, don't be distracted by what people are saying, don't get drawn off, use your vision, stay true to what you're trying to do. Yeah.
Yeah. Now you've mentioned the heart a few times. So would Copaiba be a heart chakra oil in your opinion?
Yeah, I don't. Yep. I think that we have to acknowledge that there's probably like sacral chakra stuff because there's so much gynecology. But yeah, I think so. I think just this huge pressure of inflammation at the heart, maybe we should say coronary medicine, to do with that. But yeah, to do with the love, to do with anger, you know, that. And I'm really interested in this polarity between, you know, the opposite to love is not hate, it's indifference. And that kind of feeling of, do you know what? Stop caring about that. You've got another vision, you know?
Yeah, interesting. Another chakra that I actually really like to use Copaiba for. So we know the 7 main chakras, but as you know, human consciousness has become more attuned to more subtle vibrations, we start to identify other chakras. And 2 key ones are one above our head that's called the Soul Star chakra and one called the Earth Star chakra. Now, if you're not familiar with the Earth Star chakra, it's about 30 centimeters below the feet. And whereas your base chakra is just about you feeling safe in this physical realm, can you pay your bills and feed yourself and so on? The Earth Star Chakra is about your connection and your relationship with every consciousness on this earth. So every plant, every animal, every human, every rock and that type of thing, and feeling that sense of oneness and feeling at home. And I find that Copaiba is really good for kind of bringing you back down, for realizing your value and realizing that you are part of this web of life that's here on earth as well. So, doing any kind of things like just anointing it on the soles of your feet and then putting your feet bare on the earth and just feeling at home. And when we work with our Earth Star Chakra and we start to feel that oneness, you can be in a forest all by yourself, but you're surrounded by company of consciousness. And even if you're where you're feeling like you're having a weekend where you have no friends or you're having issues with work, it doesn't matter because that's only the human consciousness. The trees are still supporting you and so on. So Copaiba can really bring in that support and that strength overall of kind of channeling through that Earth Star Chakra. So play around with it if you're into the chakras as well. For everyone to try.
I love that. Actually, I did a bit of research. I did a bit of homework because it's not like me to be unprepared. And I watched your video about Copaiba. So I knew you were going to say about the Earth Star Chakra. And I was fascinated by that because as a Melissa, we talked about me being a Melissa priestess last time. We say that Persephone lives in the Earth Star. And of course, she is the underworld. And the underworld is Pluto. That's where you've come full circle.
True,
but also just the sheer imagery of the tree, really. That if you've never seen it, you should have a look and see if you can see it because it's absolutely colossal. It's very, very tall, reaches right above the canopy of the rainforest. So hundreds of feet tall. So the roots they say that the roots are 3 times the width of the height of the canopy, don't they, for a tree? So imagine the sheer hold that has, rooting you into the ground. And if you're like me and you do get angry, if you're prone to anger, and not so much now, I haven't got such red hair, but I can be very volatile, and I do feel when I get angry I'm not in my feet, up here. So that whole bringing down of energy, I can see how that would work.
So Copaiba, I think it's an essential oil. It's a beautiful one. In so many different ways. So I hope everyone's enjoyed learning a little bit about that, and please make sure wherever you're listening or watching that you do leave a comment. Tell us what you think, and we love to know how everyone else is using their oils as well. Maybe you've got an interesting blend that you love as well. But now, what are we going to talk about next week? Well, I got to choose Copaiba this week, so it's Liz's turn to choose about what we're going to talk about next week. I have no idea what it's going to be. So, and neither do you this week.
Well, I figured what I'd do is be me. So my thought process was, first of all, I thought, we'll do geranium because I love geranium and it'll be easy then. And then I thought, no. Adam knows loads about Kanuka. I want to learn about Kanuka. I thought, no, we're not going to do that. So the bees came to me in the dream and said, you should be doing it off your cards. Yes, I'm going to shuffle the cards and I'm going to draw one. So no homework done. Say stop.
Stop.
As Mr. Australian, how do you feel about being on home turf with beautiful sandalwood?
Very good indeed. Wow. Okay.
I bet you do. Well, you picked it. So next week, I'm not very good on sandalwood. I need to get the textbooks out this week then.
So next week we'll be talking about sandalwood. I guess we're going to talk about sandalwoods from Australia, from India, from Hawaii. We'll kind of dance around the globe a little bit and dive into them all. But we'll be back next week at the same time. Remember, wherever you are watching or listening, the more you like, the more you subscribe, if you can leave reviews, all that type of thing, that helps get out the beautiful knowledge of essential oils to more and more people. And thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Please like and share us. Bye.